In the center of attention is House of Hope Mer Hooys. Today we have two extraordinary individuals who are in charge of a very special project back in Armenia, which is called House of Hope Mer Hooys. It's a residential educational support center. And unfortunately, not enough people know about this project. I would guess both here and in Armenia. And that's the reason we have Adrian Krikorian and Lisa Kalustian today with us to talk about this project and in general about the issues that are, that exist in Armenia. And the issues are, social issues with kids, with families. And I'm going to let you tell us more about that, Adrian, how it started. You are the president and co-founder of Mer Hooys. So tell us more about Mer Hooys. What do you guys do, how it all started, and we'll go from there.
Mer Hooys is a nonprofit organization formed here in the United States, and the Mer Hooys program, we support a program in Armenia which we founded with the assistance of local people in Armenia to support children coming from very disadvantaged families in Armenia, and primarily girls. So the focus of the program is to bring them out of dangerous living situations, get them a proper education, social support, psychological support, educational support, and family reunification where we find that it's feasible to do that. The situation in Armenia hasn't changed much since we formed this organization in 2011. Officially the nonprofit was formed in 2008, late 2008, but we opened the program in 2012. And the goal for us is to get these girls off the streets, or potentially off the streets, and get them into educational situations where they now have skills that will give them the tools to lead safe adult lives.
Mm-hmm. You said dangerous living situations. What does this imply? How do we understand that?
The children that we have, most of the children come from families without a father either who is gone, who has died, who's been killed in the war, or who's gone to Russia to work. Mm-hmm. Originally, that was where they came from. Even now, most of those families don't have, most of them don't have family fathers. We do have a couple girls who only have father and not mm-hmm. mother. But the mothers, many of the mothers, especially originally when we formed the program, were leading less than desirable professional lives on the streets, bringing home men who were not safe for our girls. And a lot of our girls, most of our girls, come to us with post-traumatic stress disorder. They've been abused emotionally more so than physically, from what we know. And so those family environments aren't going to give them the hope for a future that would be different than what they've seen as children.
Mm-hmm. I know you were in the beginnings or the foundation of the organization, and what was the idea? How did it all start? What made you go to Armenia and start this?
In 2005, I visited Armenia with my parents and with Lisa's mother, Alice. And while we were there, we were directed to an organization that was forming there that was doing something similar. But it was addressing girls who were 18 years and older, who had already been through the system, so to speak, and who really were at risk for trafficking and prostitution. So I was introduced to that program, and I was invited to become part of the board of directors, the United States Board of Directors, and we were instrumental in participating in the formation of that program. That program, for the next 3 years, I was involved with them, and I drew some of the people from the West Coast who are now on our board into that organization, and the diocese was also aware of it and supporting of it. But we were not happy with the way that the funds were being spent in Armenia, the accountability of the funds. And because as a nonprofit, our duty is to make sure that we're using those funds in the way that they've been donated, in the spirit of which they've been donated. Our group from the Western Diocese decided to pull out from that organization, and we immediately, like within a day, I went online and I formed a new corporation for us, for nonprofit, with the support of our Sirpazan. Hovnan Sirpazan was behind us, and we made it a nonprofit, not necessarily an institution or an organization of the diocese, so that we could reach out to everybody for support. And that's kind of how we became what we are today, is the transition from a program where we learned the mistakes that were being made, and we learned what the problems were in Armenia with us as a nonprofit here supporting something over there, and how to earn the respect of our donors, so that our donors trusted us. When we ask for money, we want to be able to say, this is how it's being spent. And all of us were fairly new at this, but somehow we managed.
Liza, last time when you were here and we're making the short film about Mer Hooys, and I hope in the future, in the near future, we'll have it ready and post it on our social media website as well. You were telling us about, Adrian mentioned the system, and you told us that since 2008, those period, a lot changed in Armenia. The system changed. But what is the system, and what do the girls go through, before they get to Mer Hooys?
Well, historically, Armenia, like much of the Soviet Union, had large institutions, right? So many of the children there were true orphans. Many others were really social or economic orphans, where their parents either could not afford or did not want to raise them, and basically ceded their parental authority over to the state. And so those kids really were being given the basics, right? They had a roof over their heads, they had food, they went to school, but they did not have the psychological support, the social support, the mentoring, the guidance, right? They could do well in school or not do well in school, but they were still being promoted through the school system. They would graduate at 18. At that point, the kids in the institutions, they need to leave, right? And now they're on their own, either truly on their own, or perhaps trying to go back to a very dysfunctional and perhaps dangerous family, and with no real skills to support themselves, no psychological preparation for supporting themselves, and very vulnerable to trafficking to other countries, to all kinds of abuse. And that's some of certainly what Adrian was seeing. And as she mentioned, the other program was targeted toward girls that were already at that stage. And one of the key things about Mer Hooys is the founders realized that in order to change that trajectory for these girls, they need to get to those girls when they are much younger. Right? And so much of it is not only the support, right? The educational mentoring, the psychological counseling, the social work support with the family, but it is also changing the mindset of these girls, right? That have grown up in a situation where kids, they learn what they see, right? They learn what they're surrounded by. And these girls that were surrounded by difficulty and dysfunction So many of them had the mindset, of course, that, well, this is my life and I can't change that. And helping them through all of these services really understand that you do have the ability to change your own thoughts about your own life. And you do have the ability to decide, here's what I would like to do with my life. Here's what I am interested in. Here's what I am good at. And I can live a life where I can turn those into skills where when I get old enough, I can do well in school. And when I get old enough, I can turn that into a job, a career, a successful life, whether it is having a job and a career or it's marrying and raising a family successfully. These girls have not had good role models for the most part in how to keep a home, how to raise a child, how to have a successful family. They did not come from successful families. And so that aspect is just as important, right? Changing that mindset and giving them the ability to understand that so many things that they think is not in their control actually can be. And they do have the ability to set a direction and change their own lives.
Living in Armenia I may be wrong in my kind of memories or assumptions, maybe, I don't know. But sometimes, especially if you're coming from a poor family or dysfunctional family, sometimes you would feel that you're predestined to things. This is your role. This is what you're supposed to do, and you have no other choice. Especially if you're a girl, and abusive families. It's just done and deal. You have no other choice.
We had our first class once we opened the center. Our first class, we took girls who were ages about 13. 12, not 12, I'd say 13 to 15. And going to the point you just raised, one of our girls, these girls were from the Zadig orphanage and a couple of institutional housing where all they did was go to school. And one of our girls, name isn't going to be mentioned, initially came from a family where the mother and the sister were both prostitutes. All right. And she heard about this organization, and she heard from some people she knew at Zadig Orphanage that we were opening our program, and she asked if she actually wrote to Vehapar and asked if she could come and join our program. And in the 4 years that she stayed with us until she turned 18, she wanted desperately to go back and live with her mother. But she learned from us that that wasn't the safest place for her to be. And going to the point Lisa made, almost at the age of 18, I'd gotten to know her because I was going regularly. She begged me to let her leave the center and go back to her mother. And we said, look, you're going to be 18. If this is what you want to do, you can do this. And she did go back. And guess what happened? She ended up becoming back into the area of prostitution. But only for a short time. She learned enough from us that she learned this wasn't the right way to go. And she ended up going into the place that I had been involved with before for a short time. And their rules there were not appropriate for an 18-year-old. I mean, she was required to sign a contract that she would get married to somebody. And she said, no way, I'm not going to do that. She left, and she ended up getting pregnant. But the young man that she got pregnant from has now come back to her, and she's married, and they have 2 children, and they just bought a home. I just came back from Armenia. They just bought a home in Ashtarak area.
That's awesome.
And I saw her last June when I was there a year ago, June, and she came to me with her baby in her arms, and she grabbed a hold of me, almost broke my neck, with the hug. She said, I didn't listen to you when I was 18, but now I know you saved my life. So they do think that there's no hope for them. And some of them have to go through that really rough process after they leave. And that's one of the motivations that we had to bring the age group down. So now we're bringing in girls who are as young as 8.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of gradually titrated ourselves down to 9, 10, 11. You know, we kind of were figuring, how are we going to do this? And we realized the younger they are, the more chance we have of infiltrating into their minds with the mentors that we have, the hope. Our girls who came in the first class, more than 80% of them are in great shape. And I assume we'll talk about that in a little while. But the first class of girls, almost all of them went to either have a career, a good career, or they went to university. And I have 2 of those graduates just got their master's degrees.
Oh, wow.
So they're working.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. So, what is the goal once the girls come in? Let's say at the age of 8, but initially they were not 8, right? A little older than that. So what do they go through? What happens if there is a program? What happens by the end of the program when they reach to a certain age, or maybe to the end of curriculum, whatever you have in there?
The program. Over the years, we're at our 11th year now, or this year we'll celebrate our 11th anniversary. It developed over the years. I mean, initially, when it was first established, and Etchemiadzin had hired most of the staff before Lisa went and kind of did an overhaul. It was basically making sure they had somebody to help them with their homework and a little bit of counseling if we saw behaviors. Over the years, it's changed because our new director has a PhD in economics and a master's degree in social work, and she came in and developed in 2014 a program that has its roots in the social work arena and with psychological support. So yes, do we have a curriculum? I wouldn't call it a curriculum. What we do. The program, I can give you a day in the life, which will give you an idea. Yeah. The girls go to school in the morning, your regular public school, and as they reach the age of 12, 13, 14, they have the opportunities to go to what we call high school. High school is the bottom of the rung. Over there, they call them colleges, and they're specialized colleges. So we've developed their skills and interests enough in the younger years that they kind of know what their interest is, either as an artist or as a linguist or as a musician or something that interests them. So our staff then goes out and arranges for them to be accepted to these colleges that are specialized. So I would say 50% of our girls have developed enough of that now, our younger girls, that they're now looking to go to these colleges that are specialized. So we support them, and we find sponsors for them if there's a cost to those specialized colleges, to the point where we have one girl from our original class who went to the art school in the art college in Armenia, and she's become a prolific artist, and we've utilized her artwork. I've
seen her.
Yes,
right?
and
During
we brought her here,
and
we had a concert. We brought her here. We showed her artwork. People who liked her artwork gave a donation to Mer Hooys, and we gave them a piece of art as a gift. And the donations, we shared what donations we got from her artwork, gave them to her. She's married and has 3 daughters now. So the goal is to find out what their talents are. And if they don't have any, we're teaching them things in the center. We have a carpet weaving loom, and they've made carpets. So we have 2 13, 14-year-olds who have now made 3 big carpets, one of which they gave as a gift to me.
You deserve it.
We have girls who love to cook. And so we get them in there with the chef, and she's in there teaching them how to cook. We had a big cooking competition when I was there this last trip. So the girls are learning skills that will get them somewhere. And now those that are a little older are working part-time in cafes, in coffee house. You know, they have goals. They're also learning English. And a couple of our girls have decided they like it enough that they're going to the university, on the university level, in the College of Linguistics. So
amazing.
The program is, I will also say, our staff consists of mentors. We have 5 mentors who couple that are overnight mentors, but all the mentors have either a psychology, educational, or social work background and degree, so that they are using those skills to now work with the girls independently, individually, to deal with their other needs, so that they're finding out what their skills are and what their interests are, and that's our goal.
It's interesting because I know that this field of social work and support of families who are struggling with this kind of issues is not as developed as here, obviously. But you somehow manage to find people who are professional in this field and they know exactly what they're doing. Because this is something very new to Armenia. Before that, we had orphanages. And we only would hear horror stories coming out of these places. Now, the structure that you guys established and the work they're doing. Tell me more about these people, the psychologists and social workers. How does it function and what they do with the girls? Are they full-time there?
Yes, psychologist is part-time. She also works in another area with people who have physical disabilities, which is good because it's helping her in her skills. So she is part-time. Social workers full-time. And then our mentors they rotate, because some stay overnight, some are there during the day, but all of them work 4 or 5 days at least. Okay. A week. That's the professional staff that are working with us. Our director has a doctorate, as I said, and a master's degree in social work, and that's kind of the qualifications of our staff.
How does one become a mentor in Armenia?
Well,
for these programs,
we're calling them mentors. I think Lisa will know more about how we structured the organizational chart, but we call them mentors because I think in Armenia there's some kind of category in the social work world that government-wise that we could categorize them as an employee.
I see.
Because they're all employees. So I think the title came from whatever was appropriate at the time in Armenia. But I will say our organization is very unique. I don't know that there is any other organization in Armenia that's operating the way we are. And in fact, the current government knows about us, and they send people from the various agencies to see what we're doing. And they're actually talking about forming their own similar organizations and asking Nuna, our director, to advise them.
That would be awesome.
And, ultimately, if we can find enough really strong donors, we could hopefully open maybe a second program ourselves if we find the facilities.
So before we get to the expansion, I have another question. Why girls only? Why don't we have boys?
Well, first of all, in Armenia, boys do have compulsory military service that they need to do. So when they graduate from basic school, they do have somewhere to go that's structured, right? And so that's one reason. But really another reason, it's really girls that are much more vulnerable to trafficking, to abuse, to, as you said, right, growing up in a system where you're sort of predestined to do certain things, be certain ways. And it's also the girls that are, right, giving birth to the next generation. And so by really focusing there, we are also helping to change some of these paradigms in Armenia, right? We've got probably half the girls from our first class that are now married, raising families in a much different way than they were raised themselves. And their children will grow up in a much different environment with the kind of support that their mothers just didn't have as young children.
And this is a huge thing in this chain of events. Like, when I was younger, I don't want to say about other people, but when I was younger, I didn't understand, why is it so hard for these people, living back in Armenia, and you would see, naughty, kids doing stuff, stealing, and you would encounter that, and it was like, why is it so hard for these kids not to do it? Why do they do these things, you know? But when you grow up, when you start learning things, seeing things, and understanding things, you understand that it's extremely hard for a person coming from that kind of background or a family just by themselves to get out of that and make an effort and change their lives. And this is amazing that, you know, you have been able to accomplish this kind of thing, you know, bringing them out of that situation and helping them create something new, prosperous, you know, positive, which helps not only them but the society in general. Obviously.
And we also have a way of transitioning these girls from our facility to living on their own. We have a transitional program. We constructed in one wing of the downstairs of our facility an apartment with a door and its own little kitchen, and I think there's room for 5 girls in there. And as the girls hit 15, 16, they move into this apartment. And at that point, they're also learning things like cooking, money management, how to live independently, how to find an apartment, how to write the daily life types of things.
Be in charge of your life, yeah.
Exactly. And for girls that really have nowhere to go, they can stay in that apartment. They have to be in school or working. They can't just be doing nothing, right?
Course.
But we've had several girls that have stayed there until they've gone out to live on their own or with friends or have gotten married.
Yeah.
And what we do with the girls who stay after and when they're going to college, a couple of them actually worked for us. We gave them jobs, and one of them taught our girls. We have a computer lab. One of our girls taught the girls computers, skills. So we paid her. We gave her money, and we wanted her to understand that she's paying it back in a way, and she's paying it forward in a way, but it also gave her a level of respect because she understood that we weren't just using her for her skills, but we wanted her to know that this is something to do. And I wanted to comment when you asked about why just girls. You know, it's interesting, my last visit there, which was just a few weeks ago, I noticed how much, with all due respect, the women were working and the men were sitting around drinking coffee and talking and, in groups. And when you go into the stores and when you go into many of the businesses, it's the women who are working and the men aren't. And that brought up a conversation for me with my director about what can we do for these boys that come out of the Army, that maybe there's a program we can help host that would then develop some skills for these boys so that they could get more if they're not, in the Army permanently. And so that's in the works. Our director is actually looking at the possibility. I mean, funding is going to be something we're going to need to do for that, but it wouldn't be residential. It would be more a skill set that we draw on resources that we have with experience that we have, that we can then maybe arrange a program where the boys, young men after the Army, can come and learn some more productive skills that will give them the ability and the motivation to go back to university or get their education expanded, because most of them are coming from high school.
Most of them, that's correct. And it's from my personal experience, I went into the military after I graduated, and even with that, when you're back from the military, it's I don't know if that's the correct word, disoriented. You feel like you have this, high expectations when you come back. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and it's nothing close to reality. There are a lot of challenges that you have to go through. You have to be very specific and intentional in your goals. If you don't have any guidance, if you don't have any support, it's extremely hard for someone, especially someone who doesn't have higher education and is coming from high school, especially from the countryside. Yerevan maybe is a little different, but overall, it's a very, difficult situation you come up to. And then about the expansion, you mentioned that you want to have maybe another facility. What do you have in mind? What's your vision for that?
My vision is limited right now because of resources, We're at the point, thankfully, that we have enough consistent financial support on an annual basis that we're meeting about 75% of our budget. So we still have to raise money to support what we have, and the cost of that has gone up about 30% in the last couple years. But we would like to be able to either do something like I just mentioned, something where we create an independent program that's affiliated with our organization to help the young men that are coming out of the service or who didn't go to college. And then it has been brought to our attention that there are still many girls out there in the villages, because, again, Nune has contacts with a lot of the regional social workers, that we could probably run a second program if we had the facility, but we're talking double the cost, we could cross over with some of our staff, our psychologists, our social workers. So it's not a closed door. Our minds are open to that, but until the funding becomes more solid. Stable, we're doing okay. I mean, surprising to me, we're doing okay the way we are, but we haven't closed our minds to how can we reach out to more children, because we know we're making a difference. Yeah. And we know the need is there, and the need has become greater because of the situation in Artsakh. I mean, it's become significant, and we even, one of the aspects of our program is to teach our girls, this is a gift you're being given, and we need you to take this seriously. And we, during the year of the war, a couple of years ago, we arranged a fundraising project, and we did a Smiley Pack project where 6 times we developed gift bags, and we went out to the children and the families of the warriors of the Artsakh War who had come to Armenia, Yerevan, and we had an event for those children, and we gave them gifts, and we gave them mothers tools to be able to do manicures and learn how to cut hair and do the things that would give them jobs. So our girls are learning to pay it forward, and that giving to others is part of what we want you to learn as an adult. So I took the girls to a Fuller Build this summer, and with Beth Brusalian, who is very active with that. And at the end of the day, these girls have been plastering walls, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. And they had a blast. They were really in there and enthusiastic. And at the end, they came up to me and they said, when can we come back? Yeah. So the idea is, develop the programs, even if it's for the young men that are coming out of the Army. If we can maybe come up with one program that we can sponsor, we're open to that. You mentioned that Hovnan Srpazan from the very beginning was very supportive, and the diocese as an institution. But we know also that Holy Echmiadzin is supporting you somehow. Yes. Could you please tell us more about that? Echmiadzin, when we came up with the idea of doing this independently from the original organization, Echmiadzin agreed to provide us with the facility, rent-free. We had to deal with all the getting it ready. And when the program itself in Echmiadzin, in Armenia, was developed, it was developed as an institution of Echmiadzin, an organization of Echmiadzin. We had a couple choices. We could have formed an NGO in Armenia. We could have gone to the government and said, make us a social work organization under the control of the government. But we wanted to be able to have credibility with our donors here in the United States that we were monitoring how the money was being spent. And my experience with the previous organization was that I wanted more control over how we spend our donor money. So Echmiadzin has agreed that our program is legally an institution of Echmiadzin in Armenia, but they have given us complete control. Yeah, so beautiful. Our board is the advisory board to the staff, Echmiadzin still audits our books for us in Armenia, and they provide us with the local type of support we need, but there's no financial support coming from Echmiadzin.
Yeah.
The Western Diocese, as one of our major supporters, has been a critical support for us in many ways, including giving us the ability to do publicity. But we control the money.
Okay. Now, if someone wants to support Mer Hooys, how does that work, Lisa? What do we do? Or someone is watching the show, the conversation, they want to get involved, they want to help you out. What do they do?
Well, one of the easiest ways to get in touch with us is through our website, merhooys.org, mer-hooys.org. They can give a donation directly. They can also go to our Contact Us page and send us a message if there are other ways that people are interested in supporting, if they're going to be going to Armenia and want to come see what we're doing, they can let us know. So that's the best way to get in touch with us and to initiate some support.
We do have Facebook too.
I was
and
going to ask, are you on any social media platforms? Because I do follow Mer Hooys on Facebook, and once in a while I'll see these groups coming in from the States, and they're all happy, doing stuff, interacting with the kids. That's just amazing. When you support the organization and then you go actually see what kind of help you provide, this is just amazing and very,
right.
very rewarding.
And we do have future plans to start an Instagram channel, so we're looking forward to that.
I think you hit a really important point. I took a group this last June. That's why I was there for so long, and mostly people from here. All right. And mostly American-born Armenians, all right? People who really didn't have the strong affiliation with Armenia as their homeland.
Yeah.
And Mer Hooys hosted this pilgrimage. And what I've learned is when people go see the program, and we encourage that, but they have to go through us, because we don't give out the address, we make arrangements. Once you've seen it, you're hooked.
Yeah.
Because you meet the girls and you realize these girls have problems, psychological problems, but they love meeting people from outside, and we encourage people to speak English with them, so they're learning their English. That's what I think is the biggest marketing tool we can use, is to get people when they're in Armenia to contact us and go see, even if it's for an hour. You fall in love with these kids. And we are working, we have just kind of increased our social media aspect of what we're doing, and we've also brought on 2 youth advisors from the East Coast who are anxious to get involved, and we're hoping are going to be the future of this organization. So
that's awesome. A lot of people, when they go as tourists to Armenia, obviously they have to visit all these beautiful, wonderful sites, Garni, Gerard, and Echmiadzin, and this and that, but everyone needs to keep in mind that there is another side to Armenia, and with your help, that other side is not as bleak and bad, because you have this place of shelter, you have this place where, this bad side is fading away little by little. You're creating this, incredible opportunities for these girls. And I hope in the future for the boys as well, because every kid deserves a chance. And I really hope that this conversation is going to be maybe a small booster, maybe a big booster for the supporters to come in and help you out with your mission. Thank you both for coming and telling about Mer Hooys. And the name is just amazing. Mer Hooys is there's a lot of substance to that. So thank you both, and I hope we get a lot more help and attention for Mer Hooys.
Thank you.
thank you for having us.